Sometimes hope rolls in on for wheels. That's what people in the small town of Huxley would say long after everything had changed. But back then, it was just another bitter winter morning, and 42-year-old mechanic Ben Carter was tightening bolts with numb fingers in a garage barely warmer than the snow outside. The peeling paint, flickering fluorescent light, and leaky roof told the story of a once thriving auto shop now hanging on by a thread. Ben had inherited Carter's garage from his father, who had believed in second chances, loyalty, and keeping your word principles that Ben carried like heavy tools in his back pocket. Even when the world didn't seem to reward them, the banks were closing in, business was crawling, and with his aging mother's medical bills mounting, Ben worked longer, hours, and ate less every day, but he never turned down a job. Whether it was a beat-up Civic or a stranger with a flat tire, Ben did what he could, always with that quiet sincerity and gentle strength that made people feel safe. Even when life was anything but it was on one of those gray, slushy afternoons that she arrived, not in a flashy car, not with an entourage, just a weathered minivan that wheezed into the garage like it had climbed Mount Everest to get there. Ben wiped his hands on a rag and walked out to meet the driver. He paused as he saw her, a young woman in her 30s, struggling to maneuver, her wheelchair out of the driver's seat with quiet determination. She wore no makeup. Her dark hair was pulled into a low bun, and her coat looked too thin for the cold. But there was something about her, an inner fire masked by calm eyes and tired cheeks. "Need help with that?" Ben asked, instinctively moving forward. "I've got it," she said firmly, then smiled. "But thanks." She rolled toward him, extended a hand. "I'm Lila Monroe." Ben shook it, noting the strength in her grip. "Ben Carter. What can I do for you, Ms. Monroe?" She glanced at her van. "This thing's about to give up on me, and I need something different. A car built for someone like me. I've got some savings, but not much. Everyone else turned me down or quoted prices I couldn't dream of." Ben looked at the van, then at her. "Well, I'm not everyone else." She blinked, surprised. "You'd really consider it?" He nodded. "Tell me what you need." And just like that, something shifted in the air. For the next hour, they talked. She explained the daily struggle, doors to heavy, pedals, unreachable, seats that didn't rotate, the fear of being stranded alone. As she spoke, Ben didn't interrupt. He didn't pity her or offer shallow reassurances. He just listened and started sketching on an old notepad with grease stains and oil smudges. When she left that day, her eyes were damp. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't know what this means." Ben shrugged, then smiled. "I've never built a custom car for someone in a wheelchair, but there's a first time for everything." What he didn't say was that taking on this project meant delaying to paying jobs, that he had no idea where he'd get the parts, that the bank had given him 30 days before they'd take the garage. But he did it anyway, because kindness isn't about what you have, it's about what you give when you don't have much left. And as he worked deep into the night, cutting, welding, drawing, and dreaming, he didn't know that Lila was watching, not from the shadows but from her own quiet world of secrets. That van, it wasn't even hers. The name Lila Monroe wasn't just a name, it was a test. Because the real Lila Monroe, Lila Grace Monroe, was a billionaire tech entrepreneur, wheelchair-bound from a skiing accident 5 years ago. And she was tired of the way people treated her, tired of the fake smiles, the filtered compassion, the people who charged her triple just because they assumed she could afford it. So she started driving across small towns in disguise, looking for someone real, and she'd found him. Ben Carter, the poor mechanic with kind eyes, a quiet soul, and hands that still believed in healing the world, one broken engine at a time. In the days that followed, they became something like friends. She'd visit, bring him coffee, sometimes just sit and read as he tinkered away. Ben never asked about her past. She never offered. But in the unspoken spaces between oil stains and engine parts, something warm and fragile grew. One night, after a particularly rough day, Ben confessed something. "I don't know if I can finish it," he said, shoulders sagging. "The parts cost more than I thought. I'm behind on rent, and there's this hospital bill from my mom." He trailed off, ashamed. Lila's heart clenched, but she stayed in character. "I can wait," she said gently. "Don't give up." And he didn't. He slept less, skipped meals, sold an old truck just to buy the lift mechanism for her wheelchair. He built a rotating driver's seat, custom controls for her hands, and a ramp that folded like magic into the back. He painted the car a soft silver blue, like moonlight on water. It took him for weeks of pouring every ounce of love and resilience he had left into a dream. That wasn't even his. When Lila rolled up to the garage that final morning, she gasped. The car wasn't just functional, it was beautiful. Ben handed her the keys, like they were gold. "I call it the Freedom Rider," he said, grinning. "Try it out." She did, and it moved like a whisper, smooth and silent, made just for her. She came back teary-eyed. "How much?" she asked, knowing the number in her head was nothing compared to what he deserved. Ben hesitated. "Whatever you can afford, or nothing. Honestly, I just wanted you to have it." She froze. "Ben, you built this, you poured your soul into it." He smiled, a little sad. "Yeah, but I figure if it gets you even a little closer to freedom, that's enough for me." And in that moment, Lila knew she wasn't just going to pay him, she was going to save him. 3 days after Ben Carter handed Lila the keys to the Freedom Rider, the garage was quieter than usual. The storm clouds that had lingered over Huxley finally broke, casting golden morning light across the cracked concrete floor. But inside Ben's garage, the storm wasn't over. The final notice from the bank had arrived, tucked under the door like a dagger. He picked it up, read it once, and quietly folded it into his coat pocket. Today was the day. Carter's garage, the shop his father built with bare hands and big dreams, was about to be taken from him. He sat on the worn wooden bench in the back corner of the shop, surrounded by dusty tools and silence. All the engines had been repaired, the appointments had dried up, and there were no more cars rolling in, except one. A soft hum grew louder outside. A sleek silver-blue car pulled in smoothly and parked. It was the Freedom Rider. Lila. Ben stood as she opened the door and wheeled herself out, wearing a navy blue coat and a scarf that danced in the wind. There was something different in her eyes, an alertness, a resolve, not just gratitude. "Something more. I need to talk to you," she said, rolling forward. Ben nodded, trying to smile through the weight pressing down on his chest. "You're always welcome here." She studied him for a moment, then said quietly, "I lied to you, Ben." That got his attention. His brow furrowed, heart pausing mid-beat. "My name is Lila Monroe," she said, "but not the version I told you. I'm the CEO of Monroe Mobility. Maybe you've heard of it." Ben blinked. The name Monroe Mobility was vaguely familiar. Something about electric vehicle tech, AI, smart prosthetics. She took a breath. "I'm a billionaire, or that's what the internet calls me. But after my accident 5 years ago, everything changed. I saw the world differently. I saw how people treated me differently. Some were kind, most weren't. Everyone assumed I needed pity, or that I could just buy my way through anything. But I wanted real people, honest people." Ben didn't move. He felt like a statue, part awe, part confusion. "So I started driving across the country in a disguise," she continued, her voice trembling. "I wanted to see how mechanics, strangers, everyday people would treat someone who had nothing to offer them, no power, no money, no name." She reached into her bag and handed him a thick envelope. He opened it. Inside were legal documents, a certified check, property papers. "What is this?" he asked, barely above a whisper. "It's your garage," she said. "Paid in full, the back taxes, the mortgage, the fines. It's yours again." Ben stared at her, mouth dry. "I'm also investing $500,000 into turning this place into the first certified inclusive auto shop in the state," Lila continued. "You'll help design and build adaptive vehicles for veterans, for people with disabilities, people like me. I want Carter's garage to be the blueprint for what mobility should mean in the 21st century." Ben sank onto the bench behind him. "But why?" he asked, raw and honest. Lila smiled. "Because you didn't ask me who I was. You didn't Google me, pitch me, or upsell me. You just helped, you gave when you had nothing. That's the kind of person I wanted to build." With tears prickled at the corners of Ben's eyes. For the first time in years, it wasn't from exhaustion or frustration. It was hope. "I don't know what to say," he murmured. "Say yes," she said gently. "Say you'll help me change the world starting with this garage." He nodded slowly, then stood, extending his hand. "Let's do it." They shook, and in that moment, the air in the garage shifted again, not with the quiet despair of debt and failure, but with the spark of a new beginning. Weeks passed, then months. Carter's garage transformed. The sagging roof was replaced. A sleek new sign hung proudly out front: Carter's Garage, home of the Freedom Build. Inside, Ben led a growing team of engineers, welders, and designers. Veterans in wheelchairs came to him with dreams. Single moms with disabled kids cried when he handed them the keys to vehicles that finally worked for their lives. Word spread fast. News outlets ran features: the Billionaire and the Mechanic, changing the auto industry. Schools sent students on field trips to see the miracle in Huxley. People came not just for the cars, but for the story. The proof that kindness, grit, and heart could rewrite someone's future. One day, Ben stood beside Lila at the grand opening of the second Carter's Garage in Ohio. Cameras flashed, but Ben barely noticed. He looked at her and said, "Funny how one small act can start all this." Lila turned to him, eyes shining. "It wasn't small. You just didn't realize how big your heart was." Ben smiled, the kind of smile that only comes when you've walked through storms and found sun on the other side. So if you ever find yourself driving through Huxley, you'll see a mural on the side of a silver-blue garage. It's of a man in overalls holding out car keys, not to sell, but to give. And beside him, a woman in a wheelchair, rising toward the sky on wings made of gears and light. Above it reads, "Kindness is the engine. Compassion is the fuel. Build freely."